Hello, this is Michael Albanese, and I'm recording this for the September 29th log. So, the first thing I wanted to discuss was the concept of living theater, which we discussed this week. I found that extremely interesting because, to me, I've always thought of theater as being just the audience goes to watch a show, and then there's the fictional show, the audience watches it, and then after the show's done, the audience leaves, and they're completely different worlds. So I never once thought of the idea that they could cross over, and as seen in Dionysus in '69 and Paradise Now, the idea of living theater is that the audience is brought entirely into affecting the experience of the play, between the audience interacting with the actors going to the audience, and the audience being in scenes, and even being able to impact what happens between casting lots about what's going to happen at the end, or in the case of Dionysus in '69, literally stealing one of the actors. And I just found that so fascinating because I'd never once thought of the idea of mixing both the audience and the theatrical show, and I didn't think it was possible. And so it was a very interesting concept. It's extremely surreal to me, again, because you're combining both the fictional world and the actual world to make some sort of strange in-between where the lines are all blurred. So that's why I found that extremely interesting, because I never once thought of that. And then the other thing that I wanted to discuss was, of course, we looked at the possible conspiracy that this man, Edward de Vere, is the actual Shakespeare and not the so-called man from Stratford. And this was very interesting to me because of the fact that I had heard in my life other theories about Shakespeare not being the actual Shakespeare, and that, oh, two people actually wrote it, or it's actually this guy who wrote it, and things like that. And I was always pretty impartial to them. I didn't know whether to believe them or not, and ultimately didn't really do so. And this is interesting because this is the first one that I actually think I might believe, because there just seems to be so much evidence that something is off about the persona of Shakespeare. Between the fact that, of course, there's so much of Ed de Vere's life that is similar to things that happen in Shakespeare's plays. Of course, the strangeness of the portrait on the collection from 1632, and as well the fact that the bust, of course, over Shakespeare's his grave, has seemingly been changed to show that of a playwright. All these things are just so strange that it almost makes sense, actually, that de Vere would be the one that was actually Shakespeare. Of course, there's no way to tell, but this is interesting to me because it's the first one of these types of theories that I actually believe, or might believe. And of course, that leads to the question of why would they hide that de Vere was the man who actually wrote these plays. And of course, there was the conspiracy that we looked at, where he's actually Elizabeth I's son, and then they had sex and had another kid, and then all these things. I personally think that might be a little far-fetched to be real, but then again, I haven't seen the evidence for why people would think that, so I really can't speak to it. But as to why they would have done that, I'm not sure, and in one of my discussion questions, I thought about the possible reason for why that might be. But I found that very fascinating because not only is it just very strange occurrences with all these things tying back to de Vere, and again, the changing of the grave bust, but as well just because, again, I never once believed any of these theories that Shakespeare could have been someone different, but now there's so much evidence that de Vere could be him that I actually think I might believe it. And I guess that's all for now, and thank you.